All right. Should be live. Should be here. Hello, hello. Welcome. It's gonna take a while for you guys to join in because we're still on the lower latency. I didn't have time to test the higher latency this week. A lot of work is being done currently. I have a lot of videos prepared. I think I recorded 8 videos in one day, and then the next day edit them all. I'm gonna go away for a while. I'm going to go back to my parents to celebrate the holidays. I'm going to go back to the Netherlands to see my sister. So I'm gonna be away, as I said, for a while, which means that all of the videos that you guys will see in December are going to be like pre-recorded. They're already scheduled to go out. I still need to do some shorts. I have a couple of days remaining to do the shorts. The 15th I'm gonna go. I'm also preparing a sale on my Gumroad. I'm preparing some products for that. So a whole bunch of different things that I need to work on, as well as just some other general things. Anyway, I do have the time today to listen to some of your music. Speaking today isn't really going that well. Thank you for doing this, man. You rock. Thank you, Ron. I don't know how much that is, but thank you anyway for the donation. I'm gonna meet or greet some of you. Lost Synapse, welcome. Cosmos Tripping, welcome. Demapsai, Sai, Klaus, how are you all doing? I think that's everyone. Can I see how much this is? Not that it really matters, it's more the gesture, I appreciate it. To be honest, I thought that I had it turned off. Oh, it's $5. That's nice. Thank you. I appreciate it. I thought that I had it turned off, the tipping this way, because the other way is better. There should be a link in the description for tipping as well. But that it's fairly dodgy, the Stream Elements one, but I do get 100% of the cut. I think it's about $5. Yes, exactly €5. Ambrosia, how are you doing? Welcome. Hope you're doing well. I am, yes. So I turned the YouTube feature off because I don't get the whole cut. It goes into my standard, like, YouTube currency, I guess, or the YouTube revenue, and YouTube takes 50% from that. So it's technically better for me to do it through Stream Elements, which is what is linked in the description, as well as when you type ! Tip. But it's a very dodgy website, and sometimes it just doesn't work. Like, there should be an alert coming up on the stream as well. While the donation came in, there should be like a little pop-up and a little sound and everything. I have it all set up, but it just sometimes doesn't work, and it's I don't get that many donations, so it's not something that I test often. I'll have to look into it because I didn't hear any donation sounds popping off. Is there an activity thing in here? Right? Just so that I can see if it pops up on my activity feed. Scene transitions, no. Tools. Docs. Stream Element Live. Docs. It doesn't say. Doesn't really matter. Last time I tried that link, the PayPal caused all kinds of troubles, but it's YouTube. But it said YouTube not giving you 100%. It's just like the ad revenue. It all goes into the same pool as the ad revenue, and then I just get 50% of that at the end of the month. So it gets treated as if it were advertiser money, essentially. But it's okay. It's not something that I worry about too much. You know, you lose $1 here, $2 there. I lose money everywhere, kind of just doing business. You could argue that me paying a fee to, I don't know, Gumroad for selling my products is a little bit strange, but they have to make money too, and so does YouTube. And they give me the opportunity to live stream, so they do want to, you know, recoup some of those costs back on me. Yes, I do like what Klaus is saying. Let's hear some good music. I've been talking too much. Let's get into some listening. We start off with Dr. Fluffy, my contribution to the next feedback stream. Let's see. Endless Mutation by Dr. Fluffy.
Can you describe its form?
No.
Start from the beginning.
I like it. Kick and bass is nice and clean. I like to see that. Tone-wise, I like it too. It's nice and dark. Fits the texture of the track very well. Also, wait. Now you guys can hear me better. Hopefully. This should be better audio right now. Hello, Zen Lion. I would say that this part is a little bit empty here. What you could do is maybe change up the atmospheres a little bit more. Because the synths are all changing. There's very few synths in this part, which is okay. Just like a more minimal part. But the atmosphere sounds just very, very constant.
To go in. It's something they term the shimmer.
This is already more exciting here. I do feel like you're staying very low in your sound design in terms of the frequencies that you're using. Now it's a little bit better. That kind of spreads out a little bit more. The high frequencies could definitely use some more interest in maybe having a few different hats in that. If you want to stay so dark and so minimal with your sound design, you have a lot of space in the higher frequencies, which you are using well, right? You're using it to have a little bit of that crispy high end, which we like. But it doesn't sound very varied. Mic is a bit low today.
Check this out. Stuff by stuff in the kitchen.
Wait.
Rotation.
How about now? It made the music quieter, but my microphone is now better. There's a key change here. It sounds a little bit abrupt, I would say. Much better, yes, nice. I was routing the desktop audio through my microphone line. So it was sidechaining the track to itself, and it was pushing me away. Key change was kind of jarring. Yes, I agree. It's sudden, so you can ease into that by maybe pitching the whole track down in the fill before it, something like that. But you just need to prepare the listener for that key change that is coming. You could do even some melodic stuff with just the bass line in the fill. You know, kind of announcing that you're changing root notes. Slightly more volume on the music. Can I turn up the music for just you guys? Does this turn up the music? Yes. Okay, so now it's clipping. Let's go to 3 dB. What I don't like is the sudden disappearance here of elements. So for example, the snare here just completely stopped playing. I'm personally not a fan of that happening in the middle of a section. I would just continue that on to a fill, and then when you really want to change the elements, you have the fill there to kind of bridge that gap. So it's mainly for like drums and stuff like that, and even some main sequences. You sometimes hear a producer do that. Like things just all of a sudden appear and disappear. In this case with the sequences it's different because you're kind of alternating between the sequences, so you don't have to stretch these out for the whole section. But the whole idea, you do have to do that for the whole section. You cannot go without a fill into like an acid line right now, I would say. I think one thing that you should probably do on your bassline is a little bit of stereo enhancement. I feel like the bassline is completely mono now. Which, I mean, it's a good starting point, a mono bassline. But a little bit of stereo excitement, usually with something like what I use with the M stereo spread. I've shown this off before.
Can you describe its form?
This plugin here.
No.
This makes the sound just so much nicer. If you just carefully adjust this on your bassline with this being kind of like the amount, this is changing how many bands it uses, so that changes the overall tone. And here you can focus more on the higher or the lower frequencies. I usually move this away from the lower frequencies, even if I'm using a high pass like this, so that it mainly acts on the click and kind of the gritty nature of the bassline. Overall, it just makes your bassline sound a little bit more exciting. It sounds lazy and slow, probably because of the lack of high end. Yes, that's part of it. The other part right now is just the bassline having a very slow groove, right? An offbeat groove. And then I think the constant atmosphere that is sitting in here, that doesn't really change much, right? It's not morphing a lot. It's always kind of keeping a consistent tone. And because that's such a slow element, that keeps the track also from, you know, being high energy. It keeps the track also a little bit slower. To be honest, I like the track. I like the sound design. Just listening to what the arrangement is doing, it is a little bit hard to wrap your heads around how the arrangement would work in like a live set, because you start off with a rolling bass line in a different key than you end up at the end with, and it becomes an offbeat bass. So it might be hard to mix that in with different tracks if you want to keep that consistency. But it is fairly interesting. It's indeed, as Klaus said, it's an interesting track. It's an interesting idea to kind of go down both in like the energy level as well as the key throughout the track, because I believe it did, yeah, it start higher. So this is higher energy because you have the rolling bass line. And it is higher energy because it has the higher key. So that means that more frequencies are towards the higher frequencies, which tend to kind of, from a musical standpoint, be higher energy. Okay, next up it's Manzinger, Legends of the Celtics. This is a Google Documents. Oh no, Google Drive. That will work. Perfect. Nice. I like the vocal idea. I do like maybe I say like sound design, but when I mean that, it's like all of the elements in there that aren't kick and bass and drums and effects, that kind of stuff. So atmospheres, synths, vocals. To me, all of that is it's not even the sound design, because obviously you don't sound design vocals, but it's the part of the track which is where the creativity is, I would say. Asset, welcome. Welcome to the stream. I did like it. As I said, I did like the track and the... I keep referring to it as sound design, but the overall theme of the track, I would say. It's kind of how you combine all of the different elements. Anyway, next track, Legends of the Celtics. Celtics. Big reverb on that Eagles shout. It sounds very dry there. Here as well, the animal is screaming, but it doesn't have a space to scream in. It just exists, kind of. Very muddy part here. Things playing through each other. The idea is definitely there, it just needs proper mixing. Not a fan of your bassline tone. I do think that you try to clean it, the kick and bass. It seems offset for some reason, like the oscillation is happening here. But that would suggest that there's the waveform of the kick just kind of doing like that. Very loud shouts there, very loud drums, very loud flute. I'm gonna turn my sign down. The main issue I see with this track is that I'm not a fan of the kick and bass tone. It sounds very hollow. It doesn't have a lot of low frequency definition. Does the bassline even have a sub bass? I don't think the bassline has a sub bass. Now we can check the actual cleanliness. Yeah, this is a mess. It's strangely not going into... I guess this is the transient, the purple part here. Yeah, so it's not cleaned up. It's just morphing into the transient in a very strange way. Yeah, you can see the kick being pushed down as well. So you would need to resample this kick and bass, but I would just spend a lot of time working on its tone to start off with. As cool as this sounds, I think it's too empty. Maybe a few atmospheres in there to still keep some music in there. Because if somebody just plays this part on their phone, it's going to sound just like a bunch of clicks now. With everything so low passed. Did you forget to finish this synth? I think that's it. I think this is still a work in progress. That last synth sounded strange, too detuned. If it is meant to be like that very detuned hardstyle synth, then it wasn't powerful enough, nearly as powerful enough. Maybe just layer that a bunch of times. Overall, the idea is very much there. I like your sound selection. I like what you're doing. As I said, I'm not a fan of the kick and bass. The main thing is the mixing. There's some issues in the intro with muddiness. There were some issues in the drop with balances. So overall, nice beginning, but definitely needs a lot of work. The bass doesn't have sub. Yeah, I figured the same thing. But overall, the sub wasn't the only issue. I would say that the tone of it was very hollow, even disregarding the sub. Obviously, the sub makes it worse. The problem, it makes it more exaggerated. You'll notice it more. Right, if I play again. Hello? Google Drive doesn't like when I skip back into a track. It cannot handle that. Apart from the lack of sub bass, which that's a big issue. You want your bass to have bass, obviously. The main thing is that it just tonally doesn't really work for me. It sounds, maybe it's the whole mix. Maybe it's the mix needs to be cleaned up for the bass line to stand out more. But it doesn't have, even without the sub, it doesn't have that weight to it in the lower harmonics. It's hard to describe such a thing. You're going for a very progressive, very strong kind of idea. There, the kick and bass really needs to have just full power. I'll put on the progressive track I made later in the break, actually. But that's for later. But that would be a good example of a bass line that actually, has a little bit of strength into it. And you would be able to hear that there's not going to be a part where the sub bass is just randomly missing. But even without the sub bass, you would hear that with the weight of it is more fixed towards the lower harmonics. Next up, Dema with Music is Language. I think this has gotten a lot of praise here. People already pre-listening the tracks that I'm about to listen to. But I see some chats happening in the Discord server about this track. So let's have a listen here. Music is a Language 150 A minor. I thought this was the drop, with how loud it was. I always like to gain it in over time, so volume automation on it so that this part is more powerful here. It's very sub heavy. And also, you didn't clean your bassline. Your kick is clean, but your bassline isn't. You didn't resample the bassline, you just LFO tooled it. I don't know if this is still a work in progress. If it is, then that's excusable, but once you go towards... It looks mastered, so once you go towards mastering, you should automatically resample. Sound design wise though, I do really like this. I don't like the snare slash clap that you're using. Needs it needs to be more of like a noisy one, in my opinion. Nice at very high frequency clap. I'll play it later. You can't hear anyway. I kind of like this heavy sub. I think it's a bit too heavy. I get the idea of wanting to add weight to the lower frequencies, but you can do that in the sound design itself. It's maybe something I should explore, trying to put that into a video. On I guess the texture of a bass line. But there is like a sub level that is just too much, where it's going to go over, right? In this case, I would say that you should probably be a little bit lower, stick around here-ish, as opposed to up here, with just the where it kind of like peaks. design is nicely interwoven with the kick and bass doing things, essentially. I've been calling them complexities, where the kick and bass doesn't play its normal pattern, where you have like kick roll, double kicks, whatever you have. There's no real general name for that, is there? The click of the kick is bothering me somewhat. I don't notice anything that stands out in particular. It might be a little bit on the long side, the very initial transient spike. It might, the transient could be a little bit clickier as opposed to sliding down. It has a little bit of a sliding down effect. I like the use of this vocal atmosphere here. Overall, the mix is very well done. As I said, I don't like the amount of sub that this track has. It's a little bit on the sub-heavy side, but I like the high frequencies, how they sit in the mix. I like the control that you have over the mid-range. There's no muddiness, there's no unneeded frequencies, so that's very well done. Something strange was happening with the bassline before. It felt like before it was being cut off a little bit. At the end, right before the next kick hit was happening. And now it doesn't seem to have that. Maybe that just happens there. Again, it doesn't like when I skip around. The music was finished, by the way. Sorry, I clicked away a little bit early, but it was finished. So I wanted to check. Yeah, do you see how the bassline here gets cut out early? So what I'm thinking is here there's an LFO tool which is already starting to sidechain right before here. What did I mess up? Nothing. Okay. So this is already starting to sidechain, so you can see it on the bassline kind of already beginning. Now usually this is what you want, right? In the sense that we look at our kick and bass and we want to have low volume right before the kick transient. For one, we would also like that before the bass transients, because that way the bass is also going to get that extra punch that you get from that method. But the other thing is, if you do it like this, where it's really exaggerated, it sounds it sounds like the baseline, yeah, it just gets cut off. This is one of the reasons why we resample, so that you can just add a small fade and keep the maximum amount of bass essentially in here. You could have another oscillation going up and then the fade starting here, right? And in this case, here, this is going on for so long that it's bleeding into the transient of this bass note here. So it's all kind of bleeding into each other, and then you're cutting it off up right here in this spot, and it sounds like it's boop, 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 like there's a proper stop to it right before the kick hits. That's not really the effect that we're going for. We just want to get that extra bit of punch from the fact that right before it becomes silent. Obviously, another benefit is that there's nothing bleeding into the kick at that point. One of the issues that you might have with extreme post-stringing is that you're LFO tooling it down here. And then for here, it's fine, but the LFO tool has to come up again at some point for this bass note to come through. Like this bass note is not being sidechained, right? You're just phase aligning that. So for that reason, the LFO tool probably right here needs to go back up, and then you can have issues in here with still post-stringing from this stuff or whatever. That's going to depend on the processing that you're doing. But the main reason why this effect is so noticeable is because you're not resampling. Right? This is just, okay, I'm going to throw an LFO tool or cable guys or whatever it is, whatever volume ducker that you used, kickstart maybe, whatever it is, you put on there. That's going to solve the issue of the kick transient not having the space. That is true, but it doesn't solve every issue. And in this case, it actually introduces that where it has this staccato feeling, which later on actually completely stops. So I guess you're turning off the LFO tool for certain parts, maybe? Right. Yeah, you can see right here, there is no such LFO tool. It is not being cut off. We do get this oscillation and this like lower peak here, and then this peak still here. And it's actually kind of bleeding into the kick even. Nice job, Dema, and thanks, Projector. I can't believe I'm learning so many things from this. You're welcome. Yes, I do want to say once more that this was a very, very well-produced tune. I like the mixing of it. There's some small details that need changing, in my opinion. It could also be a longer track, like your 6 minutes and, what, 40 seconds-ish? Seeing there's going to be like an outro here as well. Yeah, so 6 minutes, 30 seconds. You could bump that up to 7-8 minutes for a track like this. I think it's because the bass notes get shorter as there are no pitch changes. The higher the notes, the shorter the bass. If that's how you're doing your bass line, you're doing it wrong. You're not supposed to resample and then pitch up a bass sound. Don't do that. For one, as you say, the timing isn't maintained. You get shorter notes. But the other thing that isn't maintained is the envelope, right? Because the filter envelope is at that point tied to the audio file. So if you start pitching it up and down and changing the speed, you're going to change your envelope as well. Krokante, you guys want some ASMR of me eating? I'll get really close. So Ambrosia, I don't know how you're doing your bass line, but if you want to resample different bass notes, resample all of the notes and then use those. Don't go pitching up and down bass notes. That's a terrible idea. Next up, that fella. Oh, I should check if there's Patrons. For those that don't know, you get early access to feedback, so you get to skip the line if you're one of my Patreon supporters. But there aren't any that have submitted today, so let's listen to that fella with Hypojoy. Yeah? At this point, I think you guys are just making up words for me to mispronounce. Ooh, this waveform looks interesting. It's gonna start very loud. very strange rhythm happening here. At least before, it was kind of accentuating. Hello? It was so here was the kick. It was accentuating this part and this part here, the two weakest parts of the beat. Normally you accentuate the kick and then the offbeat. That's what the hats are doing, for example. Overall, unnecessarily loud track. You can definitely hear some nasty limiting kind of stuff happening. Also way too bass heavy.
Voices in the dark ethers, in my headspace.
Can you chew on the beat? I cannot.
Magnetic stimulation of my retina. I can hear them, but they're not here.
Can you hear anything?
Jitters in my optic nerve.
The guy said that he could hear them, but the only thing I can hear is a bit of a mess, to be honest. I don't know how I'm going to word this, but it's... For one, it's way too loud. Whatever you're doing on your master chain, just delete it.
Vectors in the fractals, in the folds of the night space. Penetration. Emission. Secretion. My head is exploding. Too much night pollution. Random speckle. Geometrical pattern. The Aeon is a child at play with colored balls.
I like this. This is a nice part.
Jitters in my optic nerve.
What I don't get is your fixation on trying to write an audiobook and a dance track together at the same time. Because clearly you like very long vocals that tell a story and dance music. But you cannot put those two things on top of each other. Like nobody is going to actually dance to this. Because it's the vocals are there. Right? You're not going to dance on the dance floor with all of those vocals really overpowering the beat. But if you want that effect of the vocals sitting so up front that you can listen to it as an audiobook, then why is it mastered more aggressively than the most aggressive dubstep track I've ever heard?
Prophecy. Premonition. Apparition. My head is exploding. Too much night pollution. I can hear them. But they're not here.
That honest, I didn't like this. I didn't enjoy listening to this. There's too much stuff going on for me to be able to focus on the vocals, even though the vocals are mixed aggressively loud. Like they're overpowering the kick and bass, but still it's hard to concentrate on them. So that's almost like an achievement. The main thing is, as I said, you're trying to write both a dance track, as well as an audiobook, and those two things don't work together. I had spoken word in music, only a few tracks have ever gotten it like Return of Oz, Faceless, We Come as One. It is hard to do. One of the things that is clear of these vocals is that you wrote them. In the sense that you didn't find somebody speaking about the topic, you wrote the topic that it's about, and that really shines through in the music. It's hard to really explain why that is the case. I don't think I can explain myself even, but I hear it in my own album too, the Stories of the Mind album. Now that I listen back to it, I can hear that there's writing in there, right? And very bad writing, just looking at my own work there. It's hard to write vocals in a way that they sound natural, like they're naturally spoken. Especially if you have like text-to-speech vocals, which I think what this is. Or if you're working with a voice actor like I did, they tend to read it out as if they were doing a voiceover for like an ad or something like that. So they try to be very clear in their pronunciation, and they try to be, how would you say? It's clear that you're supposed to listen to it, whereas with normal speech, when you're just normally talking, it's as you can hear from my speech, it's all over the place, right? You're repeating words, saying stuff like and that doesn't happen in a vocal take like this, or if you're doing it with voice actors. And that is kind of the life of a vocal, because you can hear that it's not spontaneous. My main issue, though, is, as I said, is that you cannot pull this off in the mix. The way that you're producing the track is unmixable. There's no way that you're going to get all of the elements out in the way that they should, because there's just too much happening. You're trying to, once again, write an audiobook and a dance track at the same time in the same track, and that doesn't work. Like there's a reason why in Planet Earth they didn't have the what's the guy's name? David Attenborough, the guy that narrates all of that. They haven't put him on top of death metal music because you wouldn't be able to hear him and the animal sounds and the music. There's very slow, calming music under there with not a lot of high frequencies, mainly something that can just be bad for, you know, the actual important audio, which is the guy talking and the animals that you're looking at / listening to. Here, there's the opposite happening. You have this very important thing that you want to tell, mainly this story, and then you're trying everything in your might to put all of the most aggressive sounds in there and the strongest dance beat under there to try to take you away from that story. Projector got triggered. It does annoy me. The reason why this annoys me is because last week he submitted a track with the identical problems. And then 2 weeks before that he submitted a track with the identical problems. So at some point I just get annoyed by the fact that somebody else isn't making progress in what they're making in terms of music. I want people to stop making the same mistakes over and over again. That's what the point of the feedback is. If you guys didn't learn nothing from this feedback, if I didn't see progression in some of you guys' track, I wouldn't be doing this. Because it would be, I would be saying the same things over and over again. And granted, towards other people, I also do say the same things. Like in terms of vocal mixing and in terms of kick and bass cleanliness. But at some point, people tend to pick up on that. And I feel like here, I don't know, you don't seem to pick up on the fact that you cannot do this. Right? That it doesn't work. See, that's why we love you, brother. Thank you. Thank you. Sometimes I'm a little bit harsh, but I usually hope that that's for the best, and I hope that you learn something from that. Anyway, next up we have... Do we have any Patreons here? Nope. We have Lost Synapse. Om Naha Shivaya. I know how to pronounce that, but only because I've heard it so many times in the tracks. And even then my pronunciation wasn't top notch. You're actually a teacher on here. They do call me the professor. Yeah, Asset is calling me the professor. Link to your Patreon, please. Isn't it in the description of my live stream?
Work on somebody who thought nothing was work.
It isn't. Why isn't it? I just copy over the description for my YouTube. I don't know. Does this work? Do I have a Patreon command set up? I'm very well organized. I don't have a Patreon command set up either on in my bot. Let me quickly find the link for you. This is unacceptable. I'll listen better to the track in a little bit.
So I don't consider myself a shaman. I'm more like, you know, court jester and village bard.
I'll listen again from here, sorry. Some nice Wim map visuals. This is the old school, old age kind of visuals. I do really like these. I've been experimenting a little bit with those as well.
Myself a shaman. I'm more like, you know, court jester and village bard.
Very strange click there. You're just activating the delay at the time, which doesn't really work well for the vocal. It just kind of clicks on and then it maintains that click throughout the delay. I would slowly automate the dry wet up over a few milliseconds, maybe. I'm assuming that this is still like a build-up, like we have some kind of infinite build-up going, because the kick and bass is so quiet. It all still felt like it's building up to the actual drop. But that actual drop doesn't really come because the kick and bass is so quiet and all of the other things are overpowering it. This is also a fairly muddy, busy track. It doesn't have the same problems as the last track, in that there is no big vocal that is supposed to compete here, but it's that same kind of busyness that makes you feel like, oh, the track is so full, what is happening? Part of that in this case has to do with the fact that the balance is completely off with the kick and bass versus the rest of the elements. Like the rest of the elements are way too loud for the kick and bass, especially the bass line, which is just inaudible here. There's some low frequency things happening there as well. Like, one of the things I hear so often is this kind of stuff where you have this melody line. It then gets taken over by a different melody line, and it then gets taken over by another different melody line. And when I say different melody line, I mean like actual playing a different melody, actual different MIDI. You know what I mean? And it's really confusing because it just kind of cuts off the melody and it doesn't really resolve the melody. production wise, like the sounds that you're choosing, I don't really dislike this track either. I don't think that one melodic thing really worked well. This thing here, this sounds like an EDM melody to me. Also the snare, I'm not a fan of the snare. Those two elements I would really reject, but if you mix the rest well, then it can work. At 2 years old, that's not too bad then. I mean, it's definitely like a beginner track, right? And it's hard to judge something that you made 2 years ago, or even longer. Like if you go back to my music, when I started out 10 years ago, it's terrible, right? Like everybody.
You come from realms of unimaginable power.
I was gonna say something more with that. Oh yeah, I want to say like this is definitely fixable. This is not like this doesn't have this it had a little bit of a mixing problem and a masking problem, but it's not in the same way as the last track was, where you would need to change the concept of the track in order for the mix to be able to work. Like you would actually need to fix the production. I think you could fix this in mixing. Like if I took it and you gave me a bit of time and some money, I would be able to mix this for you. And that would include a master, so you'll get like a final track out of that. The one thing I would say is maybe you don't want to. That is very understandable. It's already a released out there track, and I don't know if you're still interested in that. The other thing is you've probably gotten better too, right? For 2 years of work. If you have been learning for 2 years, I don't know what kind of music you make now. Thank you so much for all the feedback. I really appreciate it. It's my hobby. I love doing this. Hope to get better. It seems that way with your feedback. Thank you. I'm glad that it's useful. I'm glad that my feedback can help. I do understand some people do this as a hobby. It's maybe a bit of a strange perspective because I'm doing this music thing full time. So when I look at my own progression from like last year, I can it's starting to feel for me that I am progressing faster than the rest is progressing sometimes. Not to like brag or anything like that. It's logical because I'm working on this full time now. But it is sometimes nice to see your own progression. It's something that I do a lot, is listening to my own music, just to kind of understand like how would I fix this now? What would I do with this track now, right? And beginner stream, please. We need to get Klaus K to improve a little bit. You promised a beginner stream sometime in the future. What did I promise? I don't remember the promise. I'm a full stack developer IRL. I work at least 10 hours a day, so I have little time to do this. That's very understandable that you make less progress if you're, if you have a job, unlike some. Meaning posting track from everyone's beginnings. Oh yeah, we were gonna do that. I mean, we could still do that. There's no way I'm going to find my own tracks. I would need to like actually look for that because I haven't saved anything. I don't even know, like I would need to go to, old Google accounts, go into their Google Drives and maybe find 1 or 2 files there. I think stuff that I made over 2 years ago, I've all deleted. Because I get frustrated with my music and I just kind of want to forget at some point. As I said, I have been going back to listening to my old music, but that's never been really old. Like I never listened to even the Stories of the Mind album to compare myself. The music that I listen to now is sometimes like one of those tracks, but even then, mainly productions that I've done after that still need, you know, some mixing, maybe some final details. That's the stuff that I listen to, and that I try to compare with the newest production that I'm working on, to see if the production is actually good enough or better than what I've made in the past. I've them unlisted on YouTube 7 years ago. I lost the original account. I know that there's some music somewhere unlisted on YouTube of mine, but I don't think I have access to that account anymore, apart from my old phone, which is not here. Once we do a beginner stream, I will do that someday. I wanted to do a video also going over my earliest music. You know, the kind of video like, okay, it's been 10 years, this is where I'm at. It's really hard for me to do that because I haven't saved anything, as I said. But I would need to, like, if we do beginner stream, as I said, I do want to then spend some time, go through my old accounts, see if I can recover my old stuff, so that I can actually post stuff that I made like 5, 6, maybe even longer ago. I don't think anything exists from more than 6 years ago. I think I completely purged everything. Because I used to only upload to SoundCloud. Just like most of you guys tend to do, like no official releases, not putting in the work to getting it out on YouTube and wherever. And then when I started the Projector account, I had all of my old music on there. Or when I started the Projector project, I had all of my old music on there. And with Projector, I was like, okay, what I want to do is I want to immediately get everything up on Spotify, up on Apple Music, up upon like Shazam, all of those services. I wanted my music to be on there. So I was like, okay, how do I do that? You need a distributor. And I also wanted to post on SoundCloud. So what I ended up doing was I purged my old account because it had the Pro feature where you would have more minutes to be able to upload. So I was like, okay, I'm going to re-upload my old 3-month stuff, which was the artist project that I did before Projector. And I'm going to re-upload that somewhere, but I just never ended up doing that. And at some point, I must have just deleted the music, because I don't think I have it anywhere on my PC anymore. It might be in one of my old hard drives. I have some, like, actual hard drives. Like this. It might be on one of these hard drives here. These are from like old laptops and old PCs of mine. I think one is from my dad's PC, so. It's always a good practice to remove any hard disks from your PC before you, I don't know, get rid of it or sell it or something like that. Because then you get to keep the storage. Antiques. It is used for storage. I did recently clean one of those hard disks and removed everything and filled it up completely with backups of my videos. Because each video, in terms of files that I end up using for it, say that I have like a 10-minute video that I make, it is about 25 gigabytes of files, like the whole recording, the voice, and then the rendered version of the video as well. All of it together is, I would say, like for 10 minutes of video, for a 10-minute video, it would be 25 gigabytes worth of storage. And I want to keep all of that stuff. So I took all of the old like videos that I have somewhere. I have a backup somewhere on one of my like actually connected disks, and I just moved that over to one of those disks. But I would need to check the other 2 disks to see if there's any music on there. And I did check at the time if like the files on that disk were important, but I think that one was the one from my dad's like very old computer. So nothing was important anymore there. Anyway, I should probably listen to some more music. Ambrosia, let's have a listen. This is Focus 23 12 10 Mixdown. Nice lush airy start here. I don't think I'm a fan of the kick in here. Unless this turns into a house track. I don't think that this will become a house track. So it doesn't really make sense to have such a housey kick in here. I would go with more of a muffled up kick, I guess, and then sidechain it harder to the bass line. Do you listen to techno? No. I have like 10 kilograms of 3.5 inch HSDs. Everybody does it. My dad looked at me very strangely when I was opening up the PCs to get the hard disks out, but it's so nice to have and stored still. Like if you want 1 terabyte, it's still going to cost you quite a bit, so you can just keep them. Real track starts at 1 minute. Ah, so that was like an intro. We're already past a minute, so that's okay. Hey, can I send you one of my tracks for your feedback? Of course, exclamation point feedback will get you all of the info. But you can join my Discord, post it in here, and then I'll listen to it. Now I hear some stereo within the vocals. I like that. Before it sounded very mono. Honestly, if you're going for such like a breathy vocal, like you're doing here, you can just double track them and actually have them hard panned almost. I wouldn't fully hard pan them, maybe like 70%. But getting that width out there so that the drums and the bass can sit more in the middle. Which is another thing that I wanted to comment on, is the lack of dynamics in this track. Like, it is not a very dynamic track. Even though it's not pumped to the maximum with limiter, it still seems very flat. You would kind of expect the drums here to kind of peak a little bit and then flatten off. So maybe a bit more compression with a high attack on there can get those drums to peak a little bit more. Because the drums sound very flat now. Very one-dimensional. It isn't kind of splashing out of the track. Which is normally what you want from the drums. You want those transients to splash out there, so that they really grab the attention and then quickly get back in line with the rest of the track. Part of the reason might be the drums just being very quiet. What are we listening now? We're listening to Focus by Ambrosia. I was about to say it's what you're saying. It felt to me like what you were trying to do with this mix was make everything equally loud, which is not what balancing is. It's maybe a little bit of a misnomer, but it's balancing and mixing really mean the same thing, right? When you're cooking a recipe, you don't go in and say, okay, I need I don't know, half a kilo of flour. That doesn't mean that you then also need half a kilo of peppers and salt, right? There's a balance. It isn't 1-on-1 equal. Right now, what I'm hearing is that the vocals don't get enough space. The drums seem to be also fairly far back, and then there's a little bit of muddiness coming from the melodic stuff. But the main thing is that it feels like the vocals are really focused on the mid-range where the chords should be, and they don't really have their own space a little bit higher in the frequency spectrum. They feel even low-passed. I don't know if that's intentional to get the sound that you're after, but I wouldn't low-pass my vocals, because the higher frequencies of the vocals is where the understandability of the vocal lives, in that there's the S sounds and the from the T sound. All of that stuff is very important to, hear what somebody is saying. So the vocal, for one, it could be louder, right? The vocal itself could be louder. As I said, it doesn't have to be balanced like this. You can have the melodic stuff be quieter and the vocal kind of coming out of it, so that you listen to the vocal. Because essentially what you're doing when mixing is you're directing the listener what to listen to. What you don't want, I think a track where what is worse is that it tries to present everything to you at the same level, right? Like, okay, here are the chords, here's the melody, here's the vocal, here's the drums. They're all equally loud. Try to pay attention to at least one of them. That's not what you really want. You want to use the mix to guide the listener to, in this case, I presume, the vocals, because that's where the story of the track is. That's where the heart of the track is. Yeah, they're bandpassed. I wanted to get a more of a filtered radio area effect than clarity, but I think I ended up achieving either. Yeah, I would say that. What you can do, if you want some of that clarity, is to then distort it a little bit. Not even distort, just highly saturate it. So that the frequencies that you're filtering out, they kind of come back a little bit through that. Maybe even some tape saturation, stuff like that. It nicely glues it together. You can also drive it a little bit in there to get that almost old school radio kind of sound. But I think you get the idea of what I'm trying to say, the main issue when it comes to balancing. You said it before I said it even. Balancing is not about, as I said, trying to actually really balance everything. It is trying to, just like in a recipe, you're balancing the flavors, not by weight. Like if I, as I said, have 500 grams of flour, I would need 500 grams of salt. It doesn't work that way. It's going to be dependent on how important that element actually is and how present it is, right? Salt is very present. You need very little of it to make a dish change. Whereas if you add 10 grams of extra flour, it's not going to change the dish. What time is it? I've been live for over an hour. Do we have... Not too many. I guess I can do a break now and then do another hour and a half, and I think we'll be okay for then. Yeah, I'm gonna do a quick break now, and then I'll be back for the next track, which is going to be Novis. So right now I'm just gonna put on one of my tracks. This one here. I'm trying not to spoil too many of my productions, so there's a few productions like these 79, 78, 76 that you guys haven't heard. 101, you guys haven't heard those. But I'm trying to keep some of my productions a secret, so when they come out, it's actually interesting for you guys, and you haven't heard them in many, many different places already. There's going to be parts of these tracks that are going to be like used for tutorials and stuff like that. Mainly because I needed to make all of the tutorials for an entire month ahead of time. So I didn't have time to organize too much. So I just kind of picked some ideas from the tracks that I already had in the works. And then call it a day. Am I smoking? I'm going to. I'm going to take a break and then I'm going to be smoking and then I'm going to come back. The longer you guys keep chatting to me, the longer it will take for me to have my break. No worries. Yeah, I'm going to take a quick break, 5 to 10 minutes, and then I'll be back.
naturally, as you began on this adventure of dreams, you would fulfill all your wishes. Every kind of pleasure you could conceive. And then you would get more and more adventures, and you would make further and further out gambles as to what you would dream. So in this idea then, everybody is fundamentally the ultimate reality.
Projectors away, quick deep post, unclean baselines. I see what you did there. We've had plenty of unclean baselines already. Don't need more of them, please. Clean baselines are a matter of following principles properly. Yes. What track is this? This is one of my tracks. So it's not released yet. You guys are getting a sneak preview. Resample and then don't put any more phase shifting stuff on it. That's essentially it. Still not really happy with the synths in this part. It feels too washed out in the high frequencies right now. I should release this on a very cool label, yes. And I will, once it's finished. You are trying to bait me so hard right now. I won't tell you which. We'll keep that a little secret. Lovely voice, thank you. I actually sang this. Okay, let's move on with the next track, shall we? The next actual track from you guys. Which is, the next track is Matrix by Novis, also known as XJam123 in Discord. So let's see what you have to offer. Nice dark track. Can I send you a new track from me? You can send me whatever you want. Exclamation point feedback will get you to my Discord, where you can just post it in feedback on stream, and we'll get to it when we'll get to it. Oh, I should have checked if there were patrons. There weren't, so it's okay. For those that don't know, Patreons get early access. They skip the line, essentially. a little bit empty here. What I also don't like is the drums already being present in here. Reason for that is you want to keep those high frequencies for the drop, because then it gets extra energy out there. It's hard to tell what happened here. I think your kick is too long, but you did resample, maybe? There isn't a fade out at the end here, so I would think that you didn't really resample. There's just something finicky going on with the way that you're doing kick and bass. Like this bass, this transient is really being pushed up. The reason why this is a bad idea is the clipper and your master limiter is really going to attack this part, and then it's going to distort around this part. And what you don't want is, one, lose that punch that you lose because the volume isn't zero here, and then also distort the transient. Overall, my main complaint with this track though, it's... I don't think I skipped you, right? Zen line? I don't think there were any other submissions. Are you... Oh yeah, you're further down. Yeah. We'll get to your track eventually. There's still some... There's still quite many tracks actually before it. Very cool little fill idea there. I like that. Overall, the sound design is very nice. It just doesn't stand out because it's so mono. All of your delays are mono as well. If I didn't have the analyzer in here, I would say that this was some kind of export issue in that you exported it to mono by accident. That's how little use you're making out of the stereo field. There's a synth now that sometimes plays this one here. That's proper stereo. Hello Bandit, this is Signalizer, yes. 4 different instances of Signalizer. Which reminds me, I still haven't posted my rack for it. Show in browser. I'll do that later. I'm gonna forget again, but remind me at the end of the stream to post this, because somebody did ask for it. I'll post it in stream discussion, or yeah, stream discussion later. Remind you in Discord. Thank you.
The Matrix is everywhere. It is all around us. Even now, in this very room. You can see it when you look out your window, or when you turn on your television. You can feel it when you go to work, when you go to church. What the Matrix is.
See, one of the main things that I often hear in other people's tracks is that when they have a fill like what we just heard, or a breakdown like we just heard, they'll have their kick and bass at the same level, and therefore mix everything at the same level, and therefore the drop won't have any extra impact because it's at the same level. What I would recommend for your kick and bass, anytime you're in a breakdown or when it's not just playing rolling kick and bass, even for kick fills and stuff like that, I usually turn it down at least 4 dB, because that way you're going to get more power out of the kick and bass itself. So right here, I think for that little roll that was in this fill, it was a little bit quieter, and that is essentially what you want. We'll see if we'll find another good example here later on. You can also hear the differences. I think you didn't. It's not like the stereo width is completely gone out of this track, because sometimes you do have a sound like this one here that does have a proper stereo field, and then you can hear the contrast that it has. Like, it sounds much more exciting than like 90% of the sounds in this track, because for 90% of the sounds you didn't spend any time on the stereo field. I don't know if it's because of the way that you're sound designing, or if you just haven't come to that part yet. But I would say 90% of my synths have an instance of either M stereo spread if I just need to make it more stereo, or M stereo processor if I want to properly put a sound into the stereo space based on frequency. So this is like multiband. This is like Isotope's Imager, for those that are more familiar with the Isotope workflow. It has width, right? That's how you use it, and then it also does some saturation on independent frequencies, and then you have an overall width and an overall exciter here as well, and you can just choose whether you want it to be more stereo or not. There's a little noise in here, so that's what it's picking up on, but it does show you that it essentially makes stuff wider, right? What would you use from the kilohertz bundle? Everything. Like, their snap-ins are really nice tools to just have, because it's quick and easy. For those that don't know this, the snap-ins are the small effects. Their equalizer, their compressor. I think I have it in my menu, actually. Yeah. So the dynamics, this kind of small plug-in stuff. This is nice for quick use. I never use this outside of the phase plant or the kilohertz environment, though. When I use kilohertz stuff, either I'm doing some very complex sound design in phase plant, which I've recently been doing because I'm actually working on a very, very small preset pack for phase plant involving granular synthesis. Or I'm using something like Snap Heap or what's the other one? Multipass. Whenever I need to do something really, really complex, which I might need to do in the future again. So I'll usually make like a preset for it. I love your music that was playing before. Thank you. I mean that for the stereo processing. For the stereo processor, this one you can essentially make with multipass, right? Let's just see how long it will take me. Is there not? Yes. So you would get 4 bands, and then you just do stereo width. Here, I guess like this. You can control the width individually for lower frequencies, lower mids, higher mids, and then the highest frequencies. So that's that part of the component. This delay part here is a Haas effect, which you might want to add to it. So you could use the Haas effect. This is for generating stereo width. You can also do this here to generate stereo width on the whole signal before you go in and process that. If you want the exciter bit, you would need to saturate it. When it comes to finding a replacement for the other one, though, for M stereo spread, I don't think that there's an equivalent of this in the kilohertz bundle. Because this is using its own unique algorithm for generating stereo width. Yeah, you can go with something like Wider 2, which is free, but I don't like how that sounds on basslines, and I use this quite a lot on basslines. So really, if you want a good stereonizing plugin that just all around works well, I would just say, like, get this, buy this plugin here. You don't have to get the whole like stereo bundle or their whole bundle of plugins, although they're very good. And if you can afford it and you want to up the quality of your productions, I do think that they can make a big difference. But it's like the stereo spread one is so unique. I would just recommend anybody have this because it's so good in the way that it adds stereo to a track. Next up, we have Eternal Echoes by Noh, I think you pronounce that. At least that's how you would do it in Dutch. As you guys all know, I don't know how to pronounce things in other languages apart from Dutch. It's also how I speak English. But yeah, Eternal Echoes. Let's see. Or here. Or both. This should be the intro. I like this part a lot more than the part that was before it. Mid-range is a little bit heavy. Here, a little bit resonant as well with those spikes playing there. Splash is way too loud here. The effects, way too loud. Very clicky kick and bass. Let's see if it's clean here. Now we can see. I think this might be clean. Looking at it, it's hard to tell because there's other things playing. But I don't think that you have big issue with the kick and bass in the cleanliness. I do think your transient is way too loud for the bass line. And both the kick and the bass line, the kick I would low pass that at 10 kHz and the bass line at around 8 kHz. That's my usual setup, because you really don't need those higher frequencies coming from the kick and the bass. In fact, I would argue you would need them more from the hi-hats and your top loop that is going to sit on top of this. What I do feel that your bass line is missing is a little bit of extra sub bass though. There's also a lot of rumble happening. I saw it in the fill there. Remember to buy Projector's 24-hour masterclass for full details on production. Right before, when we were talking about cleanliness for the first time, the masterclass popped up as the little ad that it does in the bot. And I was about to say it like, as I explained in my masterclass, but I'm not good at marketing like Zen Lion is. Nice combination here. I do think your synths are a little bit too loud. Mix-wise, the kick and bass don't really come through as much as you would want from them. Okay, so here the energy lowers of the track. What I would expect is the drums to also then lower what they're doing. I would remove the open hi-hats right here. Citrans isn't, a lot of people what they'll do is they'll build up their drums pretty decently and then they'll just leave them on for the rest of the track. At some point the energy is lowering in the track again when you're going into the breakdown. So there the drums should follow along. Excellent stereo field, I agree, yes. A little bit more mixing and this track is a banger, yes. Are you planning to make a new masterclass implementing all the new tips in it? That would be the tips that I've learned in the last year. I don't think that that's enough yet. So what I want to do is I want to first run the next upcoming sale. Spend part of that money that I'm going to generate from that on new monitors, learn those, and then start working towards another masterclass. But I think my current masterclass is very, very good. There's going to be a new one at some point, but I want to learn more for it. This is one of the issues that you get when you have such high frequency stuff happening with your kick and bass. It becomes... It's like the bass trance, it's maybe the MP3 encoding, because that is what SoundCloud does as well. But it feels like the transients aren't always the same. You can prevent a big part of that problem by just low cutting your kick and bass. As I said, kick 10k, bass 7 to 8k. I like to have my kick a little bit higher in the frequency that it starts, because it's slightly more important. Kick looks really big. Clipping? I don't think it will be clipping hard. No. It is pushed right up the way that you want it. It is not clipping anywhere, as in it isn't hitting any clipper, but it is nice and loud, which is what you want for a master track. Finally, I'll say I don't think I'm a big fan of this snare. It isn't like incorrect. It just takes up... It feels too punchy for what the track is trying to be. It feels like the track has this nice bouncy feeling to it. Right? It isn't as tight as some other productions that you might hear. But the snare is this really aggressive, almost over the top kind of snare. So I would go with a much snappier snare. I think part of the reason might be because the kick and bass is a little bit quiet in the mix. And as I said, a lot of the effects are mixed way too loud. This isn't even the biggest example of that. But what I think the biggest tip that I can give you is when it comes to mixing effects, and I heard that fill as well, that drum fill was also a little bit on the loud side and the kick and bass is a little bit on the quiet side. Think about what is the importance of the elements. The kick is the most important one. That's what we're dancing to, right? Then it's the bass, then it's the top drums. It now feels like the snare is overpowering the kick, and the open hat is slightly overpowering the bass line. I would even argue here that the sitar or whatever is playing is too loud here, and now that the atmospheres are coming in, everything is becoming too loud. At least for the kick and bass. I want to say I really love your sound design. I really love the way that the track is structured. That was really well done. It just needs a lot of work in the mixing department. Oh man, I can already hear him telling me that my kick and snare are wrong. Be prepared. You still have time to update. There's still like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 tracks in front of you. If you're fast, you can update your kick and snare before I get to you. Watch out for autoplay. Yes. I think my crash cymbals are also in the wrong key. It's an interesting topic. I might want to one day make a video about that, because crash cymbals really are just noise, right? So it isn't really in the key. There is a little bit of tuning that you could do. The autoplay did get me, by the way, for those just wondering. It did just start to play there. Next track, by the way, the tuning, I'll leave that for later. I've been talking too much during the feedback streams. I should just be listening and commentating. The next track is going to be Feedback Stream by AP Sam. I had the chance to practice this. it just never works out with pronunciation for me. Anyway, stream feedback. Very distorted drum to start off with. It's kind of like a new genre almost. It's like hard tech, but with the bass line being not aggressive enough. Here obviously we would need some cleaning happening, some resampling. I don't dislike the sound here. Actually, the more that I listen to it, I like it more and more. The atmosphere that you're building up with the rest of the track really works well for this kind of kick and bass. Thanks for the feedback here. A lot of good info, especially the low cut on the kick bass. Don't do a low cut on the kick and bass. No. Wait, low cut is high pass. Yeah, you want to do a high cut, so a low pass. Don't do a low cut, that's the worst idea. Low cut removes lower frequencies. I was talking about removing the higher frequencies. So that's a high cut / low pass. That looked really cool on the analyzer there for a second.
And now, I act of my own volition. I have set my heart upon the world that I would have.
I like your audio mangling capabilities, like all of the mangling and glitching up that you're doing with the audio, but you're doing it in a way that the mangling kind of happens on the vocal, and therefore there's a lot of high frequencies that the vocal then has to compete with. You can offset it by a bar, have it a bar later so that the vocal plays and then the audio mangle thing comes through, and then it will be completely fine. Yeah, I was talking about removing the higher frequencies so that you have a little bit more space for your hi-hats. And also because you don't really need that high click. Your transient was very, very loud. Not low cut, but low pass, yes. In the same way that you don't really want to mask the vocals with your auto mangling, you're still doing it in here. So what I would do is low pass it then so that the hats kind of always come out. Because the hat is more important than the little swooshes that you get from the audio mangling. Not much headroom on this track. I mean, that's not needed. We're assuming that this is a mastered finished track, right? So in that case, this is what it would look like. At least if you want to compete in the loudness war and do all of that kind of stuff.
My mother's designs. I won't allow anyone to speak ill of that.
There's also people that get this kind of waveform without mixing and mastering. But that's not what you should get. If it's not a finished track, then you'd usually see it being a little bit quieter, Zen Lion. But when you're going into mastering, this is the kind of waveform that you're gonna get if you master it very loudly, which is what is being done here. Really cool track. I really like the sound design. I think a few details to take care of. I don't think we checked for the cleanliness of bass note is different from this one. That's a telltale sign actually, now that I think of it, of the sidechaining method. It's almost like you guys really don't want to resample and you're willing to go to the point of using the LFO tool, actually applying the LFO tool to your bassline before sending it to me, so that when I look at the kick transient, I will say like, oh, it's nice and clean. But then I look here and it isn't resampled. So you guys are getting smarter. No, just kidding. It's a great production. Needs some work on the details, as I said. There are the few things where there were masking issues with that sound design thingy that you were doing. I would just literally just move the sound back a little bit so that the vocal plays first and then you have the swoosh from that sound coming in. The other one, as I said, there was an issue with it masking the hat. The open hat is more important, especially in this kind of techno-influenced version of Citrans, which I think this is. It's more of a techno style, right? The distorted kick drum, that kind of stuff. It all hints at more like side tech than actual Citrans. In techno, the offbeat hi-hat is like really loud, really important. So I would definitely try to fix those two issues. The other issue with again, it was that kind of glitchy sound design that you were doing. It is kind of bleeding into the space that is supposed to be reserved for just the open hi-hat. Okay, next up, Histro with another crazy BPM, 200 BPM, IMHO, in my honest opinion. Let's see about your honest opinion. It is stereo, but it's a very strange stereo. It's almost like the higher frequencies are more mono than the lower frequencies. In this violin I'm speaking about right now. Piano is kind of the same thing. What I think you did is you stereonized it. What I would then add to that, something like a setup like this. It's not going to affect the track that we're listening to right now, because that's not how my audio setup works. But if you apply something like this, where the lower frequencies are more mono than the higher frequencies, onto the piano and onto the violin, I think that will definitely help. Let's see if we can find a better spot to check cleanliness later. I do like the texture of your kick and bass. It just sounds very nice. Top loop feels a little bit messy. Yes, I agree. Now that you're pointing it out, there's a lot of 32 notes happening. track might also be a little bit heavy on the sub bass that is in there. My main issue though that I have with this track, I've had it a long time with the Histro tracks, is that sound design wise I agree with them, like I like the sounds that he's using. It just doesn't make sense how he is placing them in the track. And I actually had a student that had this issue for a long time. It's really hard to explain what is wrong with it. Am I not there? YouTube is not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming. Strange. I should be back according to OBS. I trust OBS more than the YouTube dashboard because it lags sometimes, it has issues sometimes. Overall, I think right now there's just one too many elements playing. I thought that in the last sequence and here as well. In my opinion, you have some really cool, abstract sounding, almost texture-like sounds with those high pitches there. And then having the FM synth in there as well. It feels like you're just not really sure whether you want this track to sound, or this part to sound abstract and dark, or if you want that traditional FM synth sound. Here as well, there's two melodies, some FM synths. Let's see if there's more. Yeah, so now without any warning, it's not like there's an element added, but the melodic stuff, both of the melodies just suddenly become gated for a little bit. It's hard to tell what you want us to listen to at this point. Get to listen to the bass line a little bit more here. This is what I would personally try to avoid when it comes to my own bass lines. I would also avoid doing that kind of random stuff there. But can you see here in the spectrum what is wrong with the bass line, the one that I've paused here? Just a quick challenge for you guys in the chat. Just looking at this spectrum here, what is wrong with the bass line? What do you think makes this bass line less powerful than it could be? Let's say it like that. Distro should collab with you on these high techs. I mean, I could do the arrangement and stuff for that kind of stuff for him. It sounds like he has mainly trouble with that. I do like his sound design. High frequencies too loud, bleeding into the next notes, mud. Keep guessing. Once I see the correct one, there's something distinct. I'll say there's something distinct. We've looked at the transient before in this graph here, right? Normally we look right here in this graph for the cleanliness, and sometimes for the mud we look at this right here to see exactly what the sub-frequencies are doing. But you can see it only in this graph. That's another tip I'll give you. Resampling, it's not stable, it changes. It's close. I think it has to do something about cleaning, and especially the oscillation. I mean, remove that and I lose sub. All the lines going through everything. It's not that. So all of the lines, all of that stuff happening here, I think that that's related to the synth. That is the sound design of the synth. Maybe the bass starts too high. Horizontal lines in there. It has nothing to do with the lines in here. We can see it very clearly. It is staring us in the face, this fact. Well, I'll give it another 30 seconds. If nobody guesses it, I'll just explain it. Just like every college professor, I try to do a little bit of participation for you guys. There's too many frequencies in the 500 hertz. No, it has nothing to do with 500 hertz. Sub-frequencies, it has nothing to do with the sub-frequencies. This is not clear, right? It's not clear what is happening here. The tip is, it is staring you clear in the face. Each of these bass lines has two transients. 1, 2. 1, 2. This one is, the second transient is louder than the first one, or it has higher frequencies than the first one. 1 transient, 2 transient. 1 transient, 2 transient. So, which one is like the important one? Because the reason why we have a transient in Citrans on the bass note, the reason why it has that click is because you get the very strong association with the 16 note. So what that means is that every 16 note, there's a click happening. So you get that beat, you get that trance feeling, because there's this continuous rhythm going on. Here, there's no continuous rhythm, because which one of these am I supposed to take as the transient? You have 2 transients for each bass note. It's too small for some screens to see. Ah, yes. Turns out, actually, I checked this. I should keep this into account. Turns out that like 40% of the people that watch me are 50 or older. I think not 40, maybe like 35-ish. So I need to keep into account that some of you need glasses to just properly function. And when I ask these kind of questions, they might not be able to see that. But for those that did see that, there is 2 transients here. Right, you can see it's not 1 click, it's 2 clicks. Can I zoom in horizontally? Hello? Isn't this where I don't think I can zoom in, right? I don't think so. I know that before, but I'm not sure what happened. I think it's something with the MB. I don't know what the problem is. The solution to it is just to remake your baseline. Like it shouldn't happen the way that it's happening in his track. Whatever you're doing to the filter envelope probably has to do with it. A good test that I like to do whenever I make a baseline, let's quickly show this. This is interesting. Is now that I have that new transgressor plugin, right? I'll make my baseline. There. Let's give it a bit of processing. Why not? A little bit closer, a little bit tighter. Yada yada yada. Just making my baseline like I always do. I will make this in F sharp. I'm just quickly doing this for the example. Okay, baseline. Let's add a kick to that. We'll go with 143 BPM so that I can use one of these. Let's see. I like that. One of the tests that you can do is if you have a plugin like Transgressor 2 here, for example, is to just turn off the sustain to see what you get then. One click. That's kind of what we want. And if we turn off the transient, there's still a little bit of that clickiness in there. We don't really want that click in there. So we could even just low pass. And now you get that much cleaner transient coming through, because there isn't that kind of ringing that we saw after that kind of happening in the later oscillations. Essentially, the way that what we're doing is we're looking at, where is, here, yeah. We're gonna look at the baseline. What we want is we want this part here to not have as much click as this is happening here. That's what we saw before with those two spikes, right? This spike was going to be, or this spike was giving us the first transient, the first click, and then this one was giving us that second click in that waterfall display that we saw. We don't want that. We want this click to be very distinct because this is on the beat. This is on the beat. This is where the beat is happening. This is where the beat is happening. This is where the beat is happening. So we want that to indicate exactly where the beat is and not something later. So that's essentially what we're doing here with Transgressor. It gives it more transients to that first segment there because it just removes higher frequencies from the sustain part. So it's the filter pre-ringing or post. This has nothing to do with the traditional cleanliness. It may have been a little bit of a trick question. It had nothing to do with cleanliness, that kind of stuff. It had nothing to do with resampling. This has to do with the filter envelope when you're designing your kick and bass and with the subsequent processing. What can be the case is that you're processing it in such a way that your initial bass patch works, but you're bringing out too many of those higher frequencies in the sustain part of your bass line. If I can't do it with the processing, I will throw volume shaper there. For what? Production stream. It did quickly turn into a production stream, didn't it? Let's go back into the feedback stream. I'm not following the conversation anyway. Anyway, next up we have Twisted Dialogue by Dema. I believe he said before that this is for his other project. Maybe for his techno project, Noctuned. I think I've heard the name Twisted Dialogue before. Maybe a track we've already heard before. We'll see. Transgressor, yes, very good plugin. I just discovered it. It's definitely not techno. Very loud in the low frequencies. And definitely not cleaned properly here. You can see the transients being pushed down. Right, this is a telltale sign. You expect this oscillation to occur around the silence line, which is where it has the most power, but it's being pushed down. And you can see we have this stuff kind of coming into it right before the transient. So there's no moment of pausing right before that transient. I did really mess up the spectrum, didn't I? Where are the lower frequencies? Turns out you can zoom into it. Can you show your oscilloscope settings in here? This is it. I'll post the settings later as well. But you can just pause the stream there. I think this one is bugging out. I'll reload it afterwards. I think I heard that synth before. I think I can remember this track. Sound design is really good though. It's not something that I remember particularly, the sound design. So maybe you changed up a lot of the elements. But that one synth that sounded like a telephone a little bit ago, I remember that. I have explained many times what these windows do, but it is indeed a good idea to maybe make a video on that. Well, apart from the kick and bass cleaning, there's not a lot that I have to say. Here the vocals could be 2 dB louder, but the rest of the mix is very, very well done. And obviously the sound design is very much on point. When it comes to the sub bass, I would not mind like having 2-3 dB lower, especially on the bass line. The kick is okay in my opinion. The kick can be a little bit more sub heavy than the bass. You can just get a little bit more clarity if you focus a little bit more on the first harmonic, right? So you keep the rest of the mix the same, you just kind of roll off the bass a little bit lower, here maybe, as opposed to up there. We listened to this party, but I looked at the project. Okay, so you did make some changes to it. Yeah. I did see a clean kick just there, where you had the little kick right before the drop started again. That's nice. That's good. For the next kick roll, I'll pause it to show the people what I mean by that. Okay, this is a bad example, sorry. As you can see, the pausing happens a little bit late, so I need to anticipate if there's going to be a kick fill or not. Not happening. What I wanted to show is that when he is doing the kick, this isn't resampled, the kick and bass here. In fact, he didn't even LFO to it like some of the other people did. So this definitely needs to be cleaned, but one kick that I saw was playing right before another kick. Imagine there being another kick right here, and it just went to silence right before that other kick played, which is what you want to do with your kicks as well. Just like I always push for resampling your bass line. You should also resample your kick, especially if you're doing anything other than just the standard beat, right? If you have any time where you're playing kicks at maybe 32 notes or 16 notes, then you don't want their tails to go into the next kick again. We want to keep as much power as possible. So you just resample the kick and then fade it out right before the next kick transient happens. A lot of people do stuff like this in samplers and stuff like that, and then you're going to have all of those things overlapping. That's a bad idea. You just want to... I would suggest mainly doing it in audio unless there's no other way around it. Like there's some, you know, the ones that where they gradually increase in speed. If you do that, you have to do that in MIDI. Autoplay, there's no autoplay on Google Drive. So we're safe from that for now. But when you're doing kick fills in MIDI, there's two sampler settings in Ableton, at least for the sampler. One is it so that it cuts out the note whenever a new note plays. And then the other is that it continues to play the note. You don't want that second one. You want that first one. You want it to cut off the first kick so that the next kick is just playing on silence. Anyway, still working on... still working on. It's done until break, working on the last drop. Okay. So this is Be With The Light by Space Rider, also known as Acid25, in Discord and in the chat. Nice strong intro theme, I like it. I would like to hear a little bit more coming from the vocals in terms of higher frequencies. They're kind of blending in with the rest now. I would put them on top, mix-wise. He's still working on it, so maybe this isn't mixed whatsoever. I like this vocal a lot more, because that's that clarity. It's clean. I would like to see a bit more of an aggressive envelope on this bass line. It feels like the mid-range is too sustained. Like the filter doesn't go down low enough. This is already being mastered somehow, even though this production isn't finished. I get to zoom in a lot here. It's not actually clipping very hard, which is exactly what you want. You don't want to clip really hard when it comes to your kick or your bass, right? I messed it up. I'll fix it. It's good to sometimes check when you're mastering yourself if you're not clipping too hard. And you can just look at the peaks of the waveform. If there's significant things that you're cutting out, then it's a bad idea. The amount of that you're clipping, then you're clipping too much. But in this case it sounds, or it looks good. It also sounds good. I'm not sure if I'm a fan of the bass doing that wong wong. If you know what I mean. It sounds like it's too variating in volume. That rhythm sounded strange. Yeah, this doesn't fit. Sounds like you misaligned the sound there. So I know that you're saying LSD there with the vocal, but I couldn't hear it. I could only infer it from what the vocal was trying to say, but there's no high frequencies in there, so you cannot actually hear what is being said there. And you're creating enough space for there to be high frequencies for the vocal, and then you just don't give them to us. I think this thing is really malfunctioning now. I'll load up a new version in a little bit. This is not like the stereo field of the track messing up. This is the plugin itself messing up. Okay, so this last part obviously isn't finished yet. Overall, very nice production. As I said, the main thing, I wanted to chat a bit about this. I hear it so many times where people, they have a breakdown and they low pass almost everything, which gives them a great space for a vocal to sit in, and then they low pass the vocal as well. That's like, it doesn't really make sense to me why you would do that. Because the idea of like a breakdown is to continue the story, right? Which you do with vocals. So you want your vocal to be understandable. You want it to pop out of that break so that you can hear it and you can absorb what is being said. In this case, you're low passing almost everything to a certain extent, to maybe like 1000 hertz, something like that. And then obviously it trails off a little bit. But there's not a lot of stuff happening in these higher frequencies. So put the vocal in here. Make sure that it has frequency stuff in here so that we can hear those S's and the T's and the pops from the P's and whatever is being said in the vocal. Don't also low pass the vocal so that it's still fighting with all of the stuff that is happening here. Give it that space. It's sometimes really like the way that sometimes people think about just, I guess, the functionality of what is supposed to be in there in their music, or maybe people just don't think about that. But then, why would you add the vocal? Because maybe I'm giving people too much. Maybe I'm expecting too much. But I'm assuming that when you're writing a track, right, and you say like, okay, I'm gonna need to put a vocal in here, your immediate first thought is, what is the vocal going to say? What is the story about? And I think everybody would understand that if you want to write this story, then people need to hear it. So those high frequencies need to come out, because that's where the understandability of the vocal is. You want it to have its own space. Another thing is that I use Vitals texting. Sometimes it doesn't pronounce much understandable. This wasn't... I heard that there was a text-to-speech thing happening. I often use the Vital text-to-speech as well. I didn't immediately catch up on that it was that one. But if there's not... Like, pronunciation-wise, it's not about that. I mean it purely off a mixing standpoint right now. Right, there's the understandability just from the way that somebody is speaking. Like, you guys don't understand the thing that I'm saying because I'm terrible at speaking English. We've all established this. We've all seen my pronunciation. We all know this. But there's nothing else playing, so you can still understand when I'm speaking, because I'm not, like, my voice isn't combating with another 8 people trying to talk. So, yeah. I don't have much more to say. I don't want to continuously fall into the same rant over and over again. I've said this many times nowadays. Okay, yeah. Let's move on to the next track. We have some more tracks waiting here. No Patreon still, so we just continue chronologically. The next one is Tomo with The Internet. I think we listened to this last stream, if I remember, or the one before that. Either way, very recently we listened to his track. Work in progress, second upload. I removed a lot of noise, changed kick, reduced vocal samples. Middle part needs a lot of work. Thanks for the feedback, looking for more. Let's see. Hello, Maddie. How are you doing? I do remember the last time this track had the same issue where the vocal couldn't stand out of the track.
One of the first people to be connected to the internet, 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 the internet.
The delay is almost the opposite problem. I would remove some of the higher frequencies of the delay so that it's...
The internet has become the command center for criminals and terrorists.
Now you can hear what happens when you don't remove those higher frequencies. Right, what happens is the delay starts to compete with the vocal itself. That's why there's a high cut or low pass on the delay. Is you can lower it to maybe like 5k, and then the very high sounds won't get delayed. Also, I've never seen a kick do this on the analyzer. It's like it's going down and then back up. It doesn't sound terrible, this kick and bass, though. Overall, I think that the atmospheres in your track are too loud. They're atmospheres, they're not supposed to be main elements. When I mean atmosphere, I mean in this case that thing that is kind of rising and then lifting down again, for example. And the sound that is now in there, that reverb wash sound. Hats just randomly appear. Kick and bass is being low passed and the hats just kind of continue. Energy wise, it doesn't make sense the way that the track is working. this is where you want to do the fill stuff, right? Yeah, so this is where you would want to change something, because you have a fill there. That's where you can change up the drums. Still no fart Citrans project. Still nothing. I've been saying it for so long, you guys can fart into a microphone and I will listen to it. I would make the open hat a little bit shorter. Yes. Overall, I think in the mix they are lacking a little bit in terms of the high frequencies. I think sample selection isn't the best for this track, for the open hat, both the open hat and the closed hat. I don't like them too much. There were still vocals in the drop in a place where they absolutely have no business being. And here again, the vocals that sit in here, they're so delayed that you cannot understand what they're saying. And even if there was no delay on it, there were still many other elements competing with the vocal in the highest frequencies. It isn't popping out of the frequency spectrum. A lot of... oh, I just hit everything. A lot of muddiness in the track here. I think one of the better ways to fix this project is to take all of the reverbs that exist in this project and divide the reverb length by half. Do you hear that high squelch that is now in here, that is playing every 2 beats? Listen to how much reverb there is on that sound. It's gone. Some sounds, just try to listen to the amount of reverb that is in this track.
Biological evolution could complete. Humans who are limited by slow biological evolution could complete.
Some question, how do you make sounds like ambient sounds like that? Synth sounds with massive reverb? You just turn up the reverb. Make the synth sound that you want and then drown it in reverb. I think the issue here is with these ambient synths is that they're produced like ambient synths and they're mixed like the main element. So they're way too loud. The acid line isn't coming through nearly enough because it's really reverby. It's really quiet and there's other synths, other things kind of playing in front of it. The whooshes and the atmospheres and stuff like that. The melody line, the main thing that you hear in the melody line now is its reverb and not the sound itself. And that can never be a good thing. One thing to keep in mind when you're applying reverb is that it's by definition unnatural for reverb to be louder than the dry sound. Because a reverb is a reflection of the sound in a room. So if the reflection of a sound is louder than the original sound, something is wrong with physics. There's not a lot of rooms where the reverb, just over the whole frequency spectrum, maybe some individual parts if you have like standing waves and whatever, but for a whole reverb to be louder than the sound that it came from, that means that energy is being added somewhere in the system, and you couldn't do that. So that's physically impossible. And when you're mixing, you keep that in mind. So you keep that kind of thing in mind, that you don't make reverbs that sound like they couldn't really happen. You can compress delay. I've seen that in Projector's video. Compressing delay, it's almost like a last resort. It is saying, I know I have too much delay and reverb on this, but for this part I'm not going to care. The place where you would do that, for example, is in vocals that you want to have a really big delay on, but you don't want that delay to take away from the understandability of the vocal itself. That's where I would do it, right? So you put your delay on the vocal and then you compress that delay with the sidechain of the vocal itself. So the dry version of that vocal. So that the delay goes out of the way of the vocal and then it comes back in when the vocal stops playing. If you're doing that on a whole sequence, like if you have a sequence that plays from here to here and you have to compress the delay for the whole thing, you can just turn down the delay, right? Because you're just compressing it the whole way through. It doesn't really make sense to have a delay that is constantly being compressed. It's just saying like, this thing is constantly too loud. Well, then turn it down. It is a lot cleaner than the previous version. To be honest, it sounded very reverby to me, the track. And as a consequence, very muddy. I've been on a holiday, so don't judge that the lead sounds are repetitious. I will make the story more interesting. I just wanted to post something for Klaus. Alright. Slow Psy, just for Klaus. Oh. Well, I'm gonna listen to it anyway. Haven't done much more to it. Unmixed, unmastered, still in production phase, very much so. I know about the kick roll summing into the bass notes. I haven't got around to fixing that. That's something that you would fix at the end of the production, so that's okay. When I do these things where you have the pad kind of coming in and out, I like to layer in almost like a quieter version of the same thing, so that when it fully closes, there's still a little bit of it left. Right now it feels like it closes to almost nothing. And then you have these things kind of playing as if they are coming out of nowhere, right? Like what is happening here with the drums and the melody. Feels like they suddenly come in. One, if you always have a thing playing, it's less of a jarring feeling because it's less silent before the thing starts to play. The other thing that you can do is reverse reverb in elements like the melodic element that you have here. Yeah, there we could see that there was some issues, right, with the transient of the kick. I would recommend low passing this kick in here though. Again, the idea is that once you get into the actual drop, you reveal the full transient and it gets extra power from that. Right now we're still building up, this is still like an intro thing. At least that's what I'm assuming. At some point I'm assuming this goes into some more drop stuff. It's just always this pattern here. I thought this would be the Psybiant part here. In that case, if this is the pattern, I would change kicks. I wouldn't go with like a traditional Citrans kick. I would go with more like a lo-fi hip-hop kick. Coming later. Okay. In that case, I would almost go as far as to say that you should use a different kick in this part. For this, like, thing that you're doing here, the same thing over and over again. So that the kick is different once the Psybiant part hits. Because now this part is very long. It's like 4 minutes, 5 minutes. Before you get into the other thing there. Maybe that is something that you're doing. I won't judge yet. And it's... I now realize that I was going to replace this thing here. I like it. I don't like the bass sound. Bass sound isn't plucky enough to me. Look at the stereo field. Yeah, the stereo thing is broken. I think this is like 90 BPM-ish? 82. Oh wow. I like this sound. I do think here maybe you have a little bit too much happening in the mid-range there. That's because obviously that sound is just sitting there. You can generate some overtones for it, maybe even like make it a little bit more plucky. And that way you can distribute all of that energy that is sitting in one part of the frequency range a little bit more throughout the whole frequency range. But overall, I like this production. And I think you should keep working on it. Sounds very good. I got a DM from somebody looking for feedback. That's not the way to do it. For those that don't know, you just post your message here in feedback on stream. There's no need to put it in this one like people usually do, or the stream discussion, or private messaging me the track. Just post it in the channel where it needs to be posted and I'll listen to it. It's got a big reverb on that sound. It didn't feel like it was like that reverb mud of it. It just felt like it came from the sound design itself. The muddiness that I was referring to. Who do we have next? Next up is Tisla with Citrans 1. That's strange. I've heard him made Citrans before. But apparently this is the first. So Tisla with Citrans 1, let's see. not a fan of the bass note kind of just playing here. The intro would have been much better without that bass note. So you really just get that creepy texture, and then you transition into something like this. Nice clean kick and bass, by the way. Courtesy of it being too short to cause issues. That's one way to do it. You heard this last feedback stream? I don't remember. Whatever is doing that punk is a little bit too loud. It is actually returning to silence. So this is... I think this might even be resampled. I don't know if it's resampled or if the bass note is just so short that you can get away with it. It doesn't seem to have any processing on it. Funny vocal sound design there. I'm not a fan of the snare. I do think your main or the lead sounds are a little bit too loud. I was gonna say the kick and bass can be a bit louder, but I like the kick and bass with respect to the drums. So I would take your main synth stuff and just turn that down by like 2 dB. This vocal doesn't fit the track. It's not lined up. That's why. Also theme-wise, it doesn't... The track didn't really scream that it had an Arabic theme. All of the sound design up until this point was more towards the scary area. Also the intro was like very horror, very spooky theme. Thanks for listening, see you next time. See you, man. Thanks for stopping by. Buy everyone. I mean buy. Purchase everyone. I submitted a techno track, is that okay? No. I will now hunt you for the rest of your life. Of course that's okay. Yeah, I don't...
You are is important. Body and mind are vehicles that must serve us.
Why did the drop just happen
where you want to go
while the vocal is still talking?
Its own destination. What is the point of such a vehicle? It's just a nuisance. Right now, most human beings are unfortunately experiencing this fantastic possibility of human mind as a nuisance, as a troublesome thing.
If you're gonna have a vocal in the drop, make sure that it's aligned with the kick and the bass. Because you want people to dance as well. Damn, that confused. Yeah, same. That's why I was like, what's happening? Is this already supposed to be the drop? Are we still in the intro? Towards the drop or like the pre-drop thingy? This is much more danceable than the part that the vocal is in. Not a lot of consistency between the theme. I remember we started with this really strong horror theme in the intro. And now we just had like a pop vocal. So that's all the way from one side of the spectrum to the other side of the spectrum. And here we are back with the kind of horror vocal thingy. Sounds like 90s 200s. Yeah, it sounds like happy hardcore.
Something. It could be a sensation in the body, it could be breath, it could be heartbeat, it could be anything. Something.
Do you hear how the vocal is now fighting with the rhythm of the offbeat?
Sometime. Slowly you will see there is a distinction between what is you and
that's because the vocal starts playing here and the kick starts playing here, so it's off rhythm. Here's the same thing, it's off rhythm. Nothing is aligned here, so you cannot really dance to this. I agree exactly with what Nathan is saying. It sounds like you didn't really respect your own idea. Like now we're back into the horror stuff. Even this flute I think would work. But in between we've heard Arabic vocals, 200 dance stuff, FM synths, like everything. You just are like randomly throwing things into the track. It's not really being written, I feel. As he is saying, like all of the techniques are there, the mix is very well done. I like the kick and bass, I like the overall sound of the track. I like your sound design, I like even just individually looking at all of the sounds that you have. All of the sounds are high quality, they're just not meant to be in the same track, because they're not all together telling one story, they're just kind of happening, right? The track feels undefined because the sounds that you have selected don't really have any connection with each other. I could see this flute sound that you just played in the outro working with both the Arabic vocals as well as the horror theme, so you can still choose one or the other. But if you're going to go with that horror theme intro, it's really strange to then go into, as somebody said, the early 2000s like pop vocals through Arabic vocals, right? Also, there's the Indian guy speaking. That's another like theme of it. The Indian guy speaking. You have to ask yourself, the story that he's telling, just in plain English, the thing that he is saying, does that make sense with the intro that I have, with the break that I have, with the outro that I have, the themed elements of the track? If it's a very horror sounding sound and the guy is like, you need to be happy in your life, that kind of thing, it doesn't really match, right? Then either you need to rewrite the intro to be more happy, or you need to rewrite or find a different vocal that actually fits the horror style of your track. And I think that's where this track here is missing the mark a little bit. All of the sounds are very, very good, they just don't work together. Sometimes I feel like I'm too harsh. Sometimes I should just sit here. On the other hand, I know that people like my feedback, And I always say, like, I try not to speak too much about positive things, especially when the track is playing, because for one, I want to, move on a little bit. But I want you guys to hear as much of the track as possible, so I don't want to sit here and say, like, I like that, I like this thing. Those things that isn't really good feedback. But it does make me sometimes sound very, very negative. I don't want to be that way, but on the other hand, I do think it's the best way to learn, to just have the things pointed out to you. Next up, sorry, that was very loud. Next up is Bang Gang by Hart Grax. Let's see. He looks like a famous chess player. The guy that got second in the World Championship this year. Russian name, very long, doesn't matter. Anyway, Hart Grax, let's go. This is aggressively loud. Thanks for the roast, mate, but it makes me do better and I need it. You're welcome. Can we send the files via Drive? Yes, that's perfectly fine. I think the fade out was the only thing that wasn't completely limited to death in that track. You could go down 10 decibels on the input gain of your limiter and I think it would still be too loud. That was very, 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 very way too loud. This is the kind of loudness that even DJ Carnage, the guy that originally made the... how did he say it again? If you know, you know. From the Razer ad. It makes it very, very, way more louder, something like that. He said it in a very fun way. Even he would say, like, my man, I would like some dynamics, please. It is too extreme. I don't know what you're thinking. When it comes to the loudness war, it is over the loudness war. Especially when it comes to music that is supposed to be played on like streaming and stuff. Now this is more festival music, so I still get it that you want to have it loud, but you cannot sacrifice loudness in the sake of for just everything. It feels like you have sacrificed a decent balance, just the understandability of what all of the elements are, like everything. It's just loud, and the musical idea, I couldn't tell. I was gonna make a joke on like, did you guys hear the music throughout all of that loudness? But it's really sad because I do think the musical idea might be good, but I literally cannot tell. because it's just loud. Like, I don't know what's happening in there. There's just this constant... For one, there's this constant white noise playing for no reason. White noise doesn't add anything to the music, but it's just there. And it's just constantly playing. When you're doing white noise in this type of genre, the reason why you add white noise is because it enhances the part of your synth, but you only play it with your synth. So, let's say that I did Big Room for a long time. So, if you're thinking that I don't know what I'm talking about, trust me, I've made this for a long time, this type of music. When you have your synth pattern, and the synth pattern is doing something like this, then the noise shouldn't be doing this, right? It shouldn't just be constantly playing. It should be aligned with the synth. So you get that kind of noise that just sits on top of the synth, and usually what you can do is design that noise in a way so that it has a little bit of extra impact. Say that you're using noise in Serum. The way that you would do that is just by simply lowering its amplitude. That way it gets a little tick. And then obviously we use this for noise. So we turn on the noise oscillator. Something like this. This is what gives the impact and the fullness in the high frequencies to a synth in this kind of dance music. I think this would be like future bounce or whatever it is. I would like to say that like the production is good and all of the instrumentation and all of the sound selection, and I do think it is, but I cannot say for certain that's how loud it is, this track. So I again I feel like I'm being overly negative, but I want to see the positive in a track like this, right? I don't know, it's their first time submitting, I don't know them. Maybe they'll never come back because I'm being too harsh or whatever. But I do want to point out all of the things that should be pointed out. And that music like this, the way that you're writing music here, like if you look at a waveform, right? This one here. And in the intro, it already looks like that. At the part that is supposed to introduce the track. You're not like, wait, I'm using all of my volume just for the intro. What the hell is going to happen when it really becomes loud? When there's all that bass in there? When the track is actually going to start playing? Loudness has a negative consequence to it. It has a negative side. You're going to get... Well, you're not gaining an absolute loudness. Which is where people want to turn up your music. Because it sounds so good. Dan Worrell, yeah. Dan Worrell won the war. He also said the thing I just said, but better. I should actually directly quote him. But I don't know the quote. It's something to the sense of make music... The secret to the loudness war is making music that people want to turn up naturally. In volume. That's how you get louder music. Next up, we have for the 600th time Psycho Journey by Virtual Instinct. He has submitted this track many times before, but we'll listen to it anyway. At least I believe he has submitted this many times before. He does have a habit of submitting the same stuff again and again. Thank you for feedback, you're welcome. Coffee break? After this one I'll do a break. Hang on, before I forget. Let's not have a broken analyzer anymore. I made bass house, no big room. It's EDM. It's the same. Whatever you're making used to be called big room. At least that's where it came from. You guys want to break now? You guys want to break now and then I come back and I start with Virtual Instinct? I don't think he's here. I haven't seen him in chat all day. I don't think he is. If you guys want to break now, we can do a break now. Otherwise, we can do it after this track. I do have to pee actually, so yeah, let's do a break now, and then we'll come back for this track. How long is the break going to be? 10 minutes. Usually, I'll just let the track finish, so that's like 8 minutes long. Yeah, I'll just play this track. I thought I had promised somebody to play a different track for him, but I forgot. Stop doing this. I just wanted you to move a little bit to the left. Nice projector track length. It's gonna be, if you want exact numbers, it's like 8.5 minutes of break length. Sounds like he made up his mind. You guys wanted a break. I see 2 people asking for a break. So, here you go. Go have a coffee and we'll see each other in a little bit.
to me, that's one thing. It's a fun game. But where the real fruit is in the social aspect, where you get to meet people and play them a game and have a fun, competitive game. You do the best you can, but if you don't win, you won anyway. Because when you lose, you win too. Because if you're paying attention, you learn stuff.
Enjoy the coffee and the piss. I just did the piss part. I didn't actually take a coffee. Shouldn't confuse those two, by the way. Bad things will happen when you do. This is starting to become a really old production of mine. I say really old, but it's like 5 months now that this is finished. I have just so many other things to do and other things to release first that I didn't have time to work on this mix yet. Okay. Make sure that it doesn't play again. And then we'll get into Psycho Journey by Virtual Instinct. This 150 BPM master. I think I've heard this track before. But I don't quite remember. Virtual Instinct tends to submit every feedback stream. And I've said it before that I heard one of his tracks before and then it was new. So that was a little bit embarrassing. So I don't want to say too much, but I do think the name Psycho Journey, I've seen that before as well. So I think we have already listened to this track. Very loud already. I think I've said this before, right? Where if you're doing kick and bass filtered in, turn them down by like 5 dB. You don't have many tracks in A sharp? I do write in A sharp decent amount of the time. Yeah, kick and bass isn't clean. You would need to resample your kick and bass. I've heard this before, definitely. Very loud lead there. And I mainly remember your G sharp and A tracks. I think I've written more in A sharp than in A. Maybe 2 tracks in A in total, I would say. I do write more in sharp than I do in non-sharp keys. I mainly write G sharp, F sharp, and A sharp. Here I'm missing a little bit. It's just the atmospheres and the backing stuff. So I'm assuming that there should be like some one-shots that should still play there. Like this already has that pluck thing happening, so it's a bit more interesting. But even here, like just like, you know, just a little thing with a delay on it. I know what might have happened here. I may have told him that his tracks were too complex. I do remember that being the case with one of his tracks, at least, in that there was just too many elements for every section. But I don't remember if that was this track. I think what he may have done is reacted to that by deleting too much, and there are some main one-shots that are removed. Something just made a lot of noise here. I don't know. Needs some elements. Yeah, it needs some mainly one-shots. Like the sequences, I would even say it's maybe too much. Even here, right? But just something that just plays once, just like a zoom, and then delays out. That's what the track is missing. Mix-wise, let's talk a little bit about balance. I think there's too much sub here. Kick and bass is too sub heavy. Maybe a dB or something like that. I do think sometimes the leads are a little bit on the loud side. The main thing that is suffering from that is the drums, which already don't have a lot of space. They could be a little bit louder, the drums. Yeah, that's really it mix-wise. I was trying to see if there was something else. Like the stereo riff is okay, the overall tonal balance, apart from the sub bass, is okay. I want to try Saya once. You should give it a try. It's a very interesting, unique style of producing that you need for Citrans. Sound design is, as you can hear, nothing like we normally use in any other form of music. Hello Rebirth. Welcome to the stream. I just don't like it. I just don't like SoundCloud. Back to Mars. Brazilian based in the Netherlands. Ah. Yeah. That's cool. She played Boom this year. That looks very cool. Let's see. What else do we have? We have 3 more tracks. Nathan started this yesterday. It's not Psy or anything. It's techno, but I think it's a cool idea. Not finished, of course. Let's see. IWDWS Master. Is it zoomed in more, or is it just this loud? Because the last track was also like very clipped, I guess. I know, can I still submit? Yes. As that we have, after this one, 2 more tracks. I'm not a fan of that vocal. That's too loud. Ah, wait. Oh, I'm sorry. What I had done was, remember in the beginning of the stream, like 3 hours ago, when somebody told me, can you turn up the volume by like 3 dB because we cannot hear anything? I turned up the volume by 3 dB and then never turned it off again. So all of the tracks that we've been listening to, when I say they were like very loud or very clipping, there was 3 dB added on top of whatever loudness that they had. Granted, that doesn't mean that every track where I said it's too loud isn't too loud all of a sudden. Like, we all heard what that one guy with the dance track was doing. Who sent me a message, by the way. He thanked me for the feedback in private. I may have been a little bit too harsh on him in that regard. Especially realizing now that I was like boosting his track by another 3 dB, which wouldn't have helped. But yeah, you're correct in that it was too loud. This is what it looks like. So we're getting a nice dynamic waveform from this one. It's good that you noticed, because I didn't remember. Once you said like it's too loud, I was like, wait a second, am I doing anything? And the answer was yes. I do like it. The balance is very good. The mix is very well done. As I said, I don't like that vocal that was sitting in there. I think the track would have a lot more power if you remove the vocal from it. Even though it's like this very dark, very aggressive vocal, I would recommend not having it and just having the melody play here. Also, if you want to apply Citrans ideologies, I would say, almost, but Citrans ideas to techno here, you can see, if I zoom in here, that there's this one final oscillation happening here. You can basically resample and fade out right here, right? Where it's already naturally kind of going down here. You just don't have this last wobbly bit in there. That makes it a lot easier to work with. So resample the kick, remove that final bit there so that you don't have any of those issues, and then just use that kick. sounds very good. I like it. I think I gave a few tips, but overall very, very well done. Next up, Phenomenal by Rebirth. I think, again, we've heard this track before, but we'll see. I think it may be longer. He may have continued writing on it. But I do believe we've heard Phenomenal before. Is this the one where the intro just kind of happens, and then there's just random kick and bass starting? No, here the kick and bass, I remember, the kick and bass used to start there. Now there's another section. Not very connected. I would like to see those two things connected, these two ideas. It just kind of pauses, goes to complete silence, and then it comes back in. Honestly, you could just use this as an intro. I don't see why that first part had to be there. Amu posted Legends of the Celtics. We already listened to Legends of the Celtics. You posted it before, didn't you? It was already in my list. Here. Legends of the Celtics. We already listened to that one. Please on pause. I was hoping to see the kick and bass cleanliness, but you're not going to see that in here. I don't like the tone of the kick and bass. I think it's too aggressive on the high frequencies, especially the kick. Also not a fan of the open hi-hat. I would just use a 909 open hi-hat. Like this. That's much better. I don't see why it stops. The open hi-hat is just doing random things. It just stops sometimes. One beat it just doesn't play. Sometimes it's a bit shorter. I don't know. I mean, you posted it yesterday. First time posting for stream. This is what I have. This is the message. But we did already listen to it, so yeah, I just started the stream. There was one track before that, and then the second track was your track. Feels a little bit... The fuck is happening here? Why is this kick... Wait, what happened there? Was that supposed to be filtering also on the bass line? Sorry, the track is confusing me a lot, so I may not have the best insights in this one. Which in and of itself is an insight on the music, I would say. This melodic element is getting boring at this point. Like there's been 4 sections now, I think, of 8 bars. So I've been listening to the same element for 32 bars now. That would really be the maximum. But it just continues to play. And it's also not changing, it's always playing the same thing. Okay, there's a little gate on there. I actually like this sound a lot. I like what you're doing in here, I like this. I don't know what the hi-hat is doing. It's too loud for a hi-hat being layered in with the kick. I would definitely remove like 5 dB from that if you want to layer it in with the kick and then you just layer it on top of the kick. If it's not supposed to layer with the kick, then remove it, because now it's clearly not meant to layer on top of the kick because it's not here. So it only plays on certain kicks. I have actually a video coming out on groove theory, which I think you would enjoy. Because there's a lot of things that you're doing with the drums. That open hi-hat just doing random stuff. The closed hi-hat sitting very strongly on top of the kick. An element that already has a very strong rhythmical sense. So that doesn't need any enforcement normally. Especially not on its own. Like, I get that you add a hat on top of the kick when you're playing your whole drum loop. Because then you kind of balance it out with the rest of the... with the rest of the frequencies. You still want high frequencies up there, especially if you're doing what I do, which is low pass the kick at 10k. And then you need those higher frequencies from somewhere, and then you layer a hat on top of it. If there's no other drums to play against, then it doesn't really make sense for the only thing that already has a little bit of a transient, or actually quite a lot of transient, and a little bit of those high frequencies, to get even more high frequencies. Right? You would expect the closed hi-hat, I almost said offbeat hi-hat because that's how it's usually used. You expect the closed hi-hat to be on the offbeat because that's the second strongest segment of the beat. You have the onbeat, which is the strongest, and then you have the offbeat, which is the second strongest, and then you have your second note and fourth note of the rolling bassline pattern, which are the least strong. Usually you'll emphasize, that's also what the open hi-hat is supposed to do, emphasizing the offbeat, right? So that when you're moving kind of like to the kick and the offbeat hi-hat, I guess. In this case, the drums were really all over the place. The best thing that you can do, in my opinion, at this stage, I know that you're a beginner, Rebirth, so I'll give you a little bit more personalized feedback on your situation. Since you're a beginner, what you need to do is listen to a lot of reference material. A lot. Like, I'm no longer a beginner by far, right? I've been making music for 10 years now. I listen to professional music every day on my system, just sitting here listening and trying to absorb what they're doing for half an hour every day. If you're a beginner and you don't know what you're doing, that number should be at least double. Right? Because you need to train your ears into understanding what the music is supposed to sound like. It sounds like, with a lot of beginners, it's not like they're doing necessarily the wrong things or trying the wrong ideas or something like that. It's like the things that they're not, like they're not really aware of the functionality of different sounds, right? So the open hi-hat, why is the open hi-hat on the offbeat? Why is it there? It is there to add that stable, consistent, highest frequency energy to the offbeat. So that's why we use the offbeat open hi-hat. If you're then going to remove that open offbeat or the open hi-hat on the offbeat for one offbeat at the time in your loop halfway through when the kick and bass is still playing, musically speaking, that doesn't really make sense. So that's kind of the thinking that you have to do. Okay, what is this element doing? What is its purpose? What can I do to the element? And what can I not do to the element depending on the purpose? If there's an offbeat hi-hat playing for 15 beats in a row and then the 16th beat it's not playing while the kick and bass continues, that's strange. And then you like cut it up in half and whatever else that you did there. It played for like the first 15 beats normally, and then it just started to pause and be cut up and stuff like that. It just sounds really off, right? It doesn't fit the pattern of what we're used to in terms of Citrans music. That is not to say, by the way, that you cannot experiment. It is to say that as listeners, we are used to the way that Citrans is like normally sounding, I should say. So when you start to differentiate from yourself from that in a negative way, in a way that doesn't really make sense, from musically speaking, it's very easy to hear that, right? The offbeat hi-hat stopping, I heard that like immediately. Like, what's going on? Why is this offbeat hi-hat not doing what the offbeat hi-hat is supposed to do? I'm using that as one example, but there's many examples of this kind of stuff happening throughout the whole track. Like the melody just playing over and over again, almost kind of lazily sitting there in the track. It doesn't really bring any excitement to it. It doesn't really bring any new information. The musical idea has been explored, so it should be removed, and a new musical idea should be placed in its place halfway through. I would play it maybe for one section, maybe two. So that would be 8 bars, 16 bars maximum in your case, right? So the first two sections of the drop, or the first section of the drop, maybe just that. That's when the musical idea, and then make it shine. Don't put 3 other elements on top of it. Make it shine, and then move on to the next element. Cut the element out in the fill. You just stop the element from playing. Another element comes in and starts playing.
We can take on a spiritual identification as our essence.
This is... Sorry, I just blacked out. I clicked the link and didn't say who it was. This is Bandit with track 4G145. Little bit of a strange name for a track, but we'll take it. And I think this might be the last track of the year. At least of this stream, and this is the last stream, or the last stream of the year, as the title suggests. Because there's no new tracks. We did already listen to Legends of the Celtics. So that's earlier in the stream. You can just skip back for the feedback on that one. And there's no other submissions, so this might be the last track. It's for keeping the BPM and note. I mean, it's still called track 4 if you remove the G145 part. Little tip, make your bass a little bit more stereo. Also resample. This last oscillation pushing the bass line down shouldn't be here. You can see the kick is being pushed down. That does not need to happen. So you can resample your bass line, fade it out right here, and then make sure that the transient is completely clean, and that counts for everything. After mix and master, I put in the name. I know. I just mess. It's a running joke here in my community. There used to be a guy that only submitted like really long file names, which was essentially like the date and the time and some other random numbers. And every time I would tell him like, this is a really strange name for a track. Are you sure you want to name your track like this? That's kind of the joke here. I know I'm not really funny. I just realized that reverse kick, you're doing something really cool with the reverse kick. You're fading it out. I love that. Never seen that before. This is actually no joke. When it comes to reverse kicks, I hate it when the kick is just the exact same kick, but reversed. What I do is I cut away the transient so that you just have the bass part reverse in, and then you still essentially think of it as this graph here. Frequency over time, right? You have the reverse kick kind of coming in, it swoops up a little bit in those lower frequencies, and then the transient kind of slashes through that. What I personally don't like is when the kick kind of does this. It goes all the way up and then it kind of comes back. Which is just, okay, you take the kick, you reverse it and place it reversed in there. You didn't do that. You either cut out the transient before reversing it, so you just literally cut off the transient and then reversed it, or you fade it out after reversing it. Right? So that you essentially cut out the transient in that way. It just, instead of going to the transient, it goes to silence. I like that. It's the same thing that I do. Before reversing the kick, I remove like the actual transient and then add a little fade, but you can also just add a fade to it. Learn that from Creative Mind and CPU to fade, avoid click and volume. Yeah. Well, what you're essentially doing there, the most important thing in my opinion, is that you're leaving space for the transient itself. There's no, like, imagine if this was also mirrored on the other side sliding into it. You would barely notice this transient being there because it's already sliding into it. So what you're doing is you're sliding into this and then it's going to go boom, right? You're just boom. That's kind of like almost like a slow-mo of what the kick with the reverse kick before it is doing. As opposed to which is where you don't cut it at all. I just want to point it out because I've never seen it before in the feedback stream. This is the first time I've ever seen somebody actively removing the transients from their reverse kicks, so the transient of their actual kick comes through more.
The first step in awakening and cooling is to see what it
Okay, we're now 15 bars in. There's a fill. I like that. And during the fill he changed up the elements. There's still the old element. You could argue that that's no longer needed, but it's kind of just transitioning in this part. I expect the next part, the old melodic element just goes out. Okay, it doesn't. I would have removed it at this point. Because you're starting to repeat yourself a little bit more. And since you're already doing it in like 16 bar blocks, right, in terms of the fills. Let's see if you keep to that. Because I was going to say something about that, like trying to focus on that. One thing, try to keep your fills at least a bar long. I've noticed that if you do too many times half a bar or a quarter of a bar, just like one note without the bass, that tends to sound too busy, like it's not really clear that that's the fill. I found that a bar length is a good indication of it actually being a fill. Right, this doesn't really tell us like, okay, something is about to change, something is about to evolve. Because the fills is where you change some things, right? You switch in a new lead, you change up the drum pattern a little bit. Maybe you add the open hi-hat because you want this to be the highest energy part of the track. see now how for the last 2 sections the track was kind of just building lower and lower with every fill that was happening. That's exactly how to do it. One thing I would recommend is a bit more play between the elements. In that I like all of your sound design that you're doing. It's just all very similar. In the sense that it's hard to tell like what the main feature of the track is supposed to be. There's some acid sounds happening, there's some other stuff happening, but there isn't really that one unique element, that one unique lead that, you know, stands out for the track. I'll give a quick example and then I'll round off the stream. Actually, this track that we just heard from me is a good example. Something like that, right? That's a very unique element. If I go in here somewhere where there's like an acid line or squelches or something, this isn't really unique. This is all done before, right? I'm missing that one unique element that has not been done before. That's the best way I can say it. It's technically very well produced Citrans. It just doesn't stand out to me. Which I would say, yeah, when it comes to the production and the overall skill and the overall production quality, as I said, it's good production quality. Everything is there. It's mixed well. It was a little bit quiet, but you're still working on it, so that's okay. It needs its kick and bass cleaned. But the main thing that this track really needs to stand out, if you want it to stand out, if you don't want it to just be a filler track in somebody else's live set, then I would recommend spending a little bit more time trying to create a unique sound for it. At least one or two, like even in here, I would say, like, we've heard this before, this isn't really unique. Here, a comb filter. How original. Here, a very wet FM synth. Not very unique stuff, right? So the only real unique element in here, and even this, I mean, 2 Van vocals have been used before. It's just that I cut them up in a way that nobody has ever done before, I guess. Or something like that. So it's just this one section that has the uniqueness into it. But that's the part that everybody is going to remember when your track is played. So I hope that helps. With that, I'm going to end the stream here. It has been almost 4 hours of streaming, so that's enough for today. I hope that the feedback helped for everyone. I hope that you enjoyed the stream. And yeah, that's going to be it. I'll see you guys all next year. Unless I have time to do before the 15th, one more live stream in which we'll be working on that high-tech track more. The reason for that is then I may have to edit that when I'm at home. So if I can squeeze that in, apart from all of the other videos and all of the other things that I have to do, if I can squeeze in the time to also live stream another time, I might do that one more time. Otherwise, happy Christmas to everyone, happy New Year to everyone already in advance, and if I don't stream one more time before the end of the year, we'll see each other all in 2024. So that's it.